These are all meaningful. I'll probably have the unedited version, and then I'll edit out some key questions and answers, because I think, some teachers may not sit through it because they're busy.
Right.
Right, but they're busy doing a lot of things that if
Yeah.
they implemented this, wouldn't busy them up, I think.
Right.
And that's the message I want to get to them. It's like, not just is it great for the students. That should be our primary focus, obviously, and let's just assume we all are altruistic in that regard as teachers, that we're here for the students, which is what we should be. But it's also cheap altruism, like capitalism, win-win. If it's easier for me and it's better for the students, now I'm motivated.
Right.
That's the message I want to get to them. It's like, it's not easy to do, but once you've got it in place, the rest of the year is easy.
Right. You do the hard work up front.
Yeah, and then,
Smooth sailing.
yeah.
And I really don't have behavior issues.
I noticed.
I really don't. And
Because
this is
you have a few different
with,
classes.
with all of the classes, and my other two classes are Tier 3 students. A lot of them are behavior issues or have been behavior issues.
For other people.
Yeah, but I don't see it because they're very engaged.
I'd love to come and get a clip of, hopefully this thing worked out, of that sixth grade class, that tier 3 sixth grade class.
Well, it's not a sixth grade.
It's not,
They're both
they're all
seventh.
seventh, okay. That tier 3 class then that I visited first, which was just an amazing conversation.
Yeah, so we were working on sixth grade material. The
That's
question was a
what
sixth grade
struck
question.
me, because I was dancing around the room and I saw the connection between some of the things that was, but still, where are they at now? That same group, are they similar position to this group?
Well, so
Content-based?
those other two groups are doing Math 180, so they're
They're in a different-
the computer-based half the time.
Gotcha.
And then we kind of incorporate
Okay.
that. So they're like a whole unit behind. Like, they're still talking about what's proportional, what's not. They're not working on
But they're not
equations.
necessarily meant to be at the same pace.
No, they're not.
So only being one unit behind is really not so bad, actually.
It's not, and so with them, I kind of pick and choose
Mm-hmm.
what I feel like will be helpful for the future with them when we're talking about things. So Math 180 is like 3rd through 6th grade things. But we were working on tables there, and that was when one of the questions came up. Oh, this table's proportional, isn't it? But it was really about something totally different. It wasn't even on the concept of proportionality, but they're making those connections. So lower achieving students, but they have a better understanding. So hopefully they'll also be prepared for whatever happens with them in 8th grade. So.
Yes, well, certainly they'll be more prepared by what you've done for them, I know that. And by life in general, even if 8th grade is
And
not
that
the greatest
is
experience.
what's very important to me, is that they leave feeling more confident about their abilities to be successful. That if you work hard, if you put that effort in, which is one of the things that I'm leery about, the grading thing. When I put up grades or things, we just talk about below basic, proficient, advanced. I don't want to
give
get with the
A,
A,
B,
B, C,
Cs,
Ds.
Ds, yeah.
Yeah, we do 4, 3, 2, 1 on almost everything. Because I want you to focus, do I understand it? That's
Right.
what you need to know. Do I understand it the way I need to understand it?
Yeah,
And so,
yeah, everything is so grade driven. I get there
Yeah.
needs to be evaluation, obviously.
right.
But the student focus is about that. What's that? What's your final evaluative impression of me that's going to go on my report card?
Right.
And I get that that's important. But if you understand what you're doing, well, of course, it's going to be a good evaluation. And that's the
Right.
focus of, forget about that, because it will take care of itself. You don't think it will, because maybe in the past it hasn't, but if you would truly commit yourself to just the understanding.
And that's another issue that has came up with parents. My kid got an A in the past. Why do they have a C this year? Because even with the assessments, I'm asking them to explain. A lot of kids who have previously gotten A's know how to follow routines and procedures. So you tell them to do it this way, they're going to do it this way. But they're unable to think, process, explain, because they don't really understand. They just know how to follow the
Right.
process. And so I've seen that, which after talking with parents, they do understand. But I've had several of those conversations this year, because they're seeing a difference in what the kids used to. But the kids actually, their abilities change, obviously,
Yeah.
after they're used to having to explain.
Right.
I don't have to explain as much anymore. They see a question, they know they should explain. So I don't have to ask for that. So progress, but it's a lot of things that you wouldn't think of that come up with changing the model in which you teach.
So, you said Math 180, is that one of those things that's like Alex and that, or is it?
It's not.
It's not. So you don't really do the Alex thing here?
No, I would love Alex.
What I'd like to see is how your impression of their growth and their own impression of their growth, their metacognitive impression, aligns with the Alex impression of their growth. That's one piece I'd really like to see happen. Obviously, not available here,
Yeah.
but that would be, I think, something to really as a pinpoint, because that's going to be the crux of it in the end. Is this discussion growth that we're all touting here as we do it matriculating down into their ability to perform on a high-stakes test? Whether that's right or wrong, I'm going to say wrong, but it's still the reality. And
Right.
will that bridge be made to understanding and performance in a limited scope examination? That's the dilemma. I feel like a kid who's used to explaining what they think and why they think it probably isn't fast, and so they don't
Right.
complete as many problems. Now, chances are the problems they complete will be correct, and that score may wash itself out because the large percentage of what they did is correct.
And it's funny you mention that, because that's an example I use with my students at the beginning of the year. In order to get my middle school certification, I took the praxis because I only had elementary certification. I didn't remember formulas. I had been teaching for 8
Right.
years in elementary, and so it's been a long time since I had to know these formulas. But I understood the questions, and so I was able to break it down. I didn't finish the praxis. I didn't finish all the questions, but I scored higher than a lot of the other people I knew because I got those questions right. So that's one of the examples that I talk with my students about. It's more important about do you understand it?
Right.
Because if you understand and you can't remember the formula, you'll still be able to solve it. It may take a little bit longer, but you'll still be able to do it and do it correctly.
Right.
So yeah, that's a great point.
Fast and wrong there's no benefit in
Right,
that. It really
right.
isn't. I can make a quick decision that's poor and ruin my life.
Right.
So that's a habit of reactivity, short-term reactivity that needs to be broken, I think, in our society.
Yes.
Certainly with our students.
Yes.
To make that change become
Parents are
societal.
also upset because I tell them not to help with homework. Parents are focused on right answers.
Right. They're going to give them an algorithm.
Yes.
Here's how you get it.
Yes, and I say, I'd rather your child come back with a wrong answer and they're able to tell me what they did than a right answer and they have no clue what it means. Because when they come back in, usually they'll have time to discuss with their groups, and their groups will point out where their thinking went wrong. And so it'll allow them to adjust their own thinking instead of trying to remember this procedure that doesn't even connect with why it happens.
Right. Oh, this gives me the right answer, but I don't know why.
Exactly. Kids start off with questioning. So am I supposed to divide, multiply, or subtract, or add? It doesn't matter. And it's
Yes,
great when
in some order.
the document camera is one of the best tools for the discussion, because they see with problems that some problems you can divide and then somebody else added, but you all both came up with the answer, depending on what strategy you use.
Right.
So that question, you don't need to ask it. Depending on what you do, you may do some different things, but still be able to come up with an answer that makes sense. And so
now let me ask you one more thing, and I agree with that totally, by the way. I didn't mean to cut you short.
and if you just have a free moment and want to pop in, you don't have to be announced.
Okay.
Regular times, you may catch us on a bad day, which would be good too.
Right. Well, I'm wanting to
don't.
catch all of those things. I've got a number of people that have gotten to volunteer themselves, and some of them have just started. and they're struggling, like you said. And I'm just going to show some people who've been doing it a while and they've overcome some struggles, but they're still not where they want to be, and then show some people who really got it. And I want to make that progression visible. I don't want teachers to go in there with a silly sense of what to expect, just to be discouraged and then reject.
And that was the most frustrating for me. It would have been great for me to know that I was going to go through that. Because I just kind of dove right in and it was excited, like starting to, like, we're going to discuss this first day, everybody's going to, and it didn't happen like that. So I think it's important for people to know up front, it's going to be a struggle. And it took a few weeks to struggle with me trying it every day, but it does pay off in the end, so.
You know, greatly. I mean, because I walk into some people's rooms and the same misbehavior issues they were having, they're still having, and it's, 12 weeks later?
Yeah.
And you're not.
Yeah.
So that, to me, all by itself is the biggest selling point of all as a teacher. If I can eliminate all this
Right.
crap I got to contend with every day, what makes teachers burn out is that. It isn't the joy of teaching. It isn't even the load of grading. It's all the other stuff that they have to do
It is.
to meet those targets and then to report that data, whereas if it was just, hey man, I come in and, my kids and I, we talk a little and then we get going and it's all a conversation. I give them a test now and then and they perform. We discuss their performance because they know how to discuss. They're not, defensive if they got a
And they're
wrong
not
answer.
balling up their papers anymore.
Right.
We talk about that they get a test, they do bad on it, they want to ball it up, throw it away.
Right. Hide it. Didn't happen.
But now they're like, what did you get? How did you do that? And then they'll look, I saw, okay. And so.
And that's even greater because I used as a math teacher, I used to put comments and everything. And then they would ball it up, and I finally quit doing that. I just quit doing it because I was spending hours
Right.
grading. And maybe 2 people would look at that. And then I tried other strategies, like putting my completed test up for those who wanted to look at the process. But I like this better, because, again, that's just more work for me.
Right.
All in all, you don't have to make hardly any comments, and they're going to look at where their mistakes are with their group because they're used to doing that
They
as a
are.
norm.
And I usually put a question on there. How did you find this? Or where did this number come from? So that before
stem to
they
get 'em
talk,
thinking, yeah.
they can start looking at the questions I put. And if they're unable to answer it on their own, then they can ask. But when we share, they're sharing either, what did you learn from your mistake? Or talk to somebody about what they did and try to figure out where your mistake was. So they can go either way.
Do you guys have math journals? Do you use that?
We do. We have interactive notebooks and that's what they were kind of writing in. They have a binder that has their classwork in it, but then they have their interactive notebook that has the notes. They kind of do their homework journals in there, and that's something that they refer to. I don't know if you noticed when they were in the corner, some of them went and picked up their notebooks when they were trying to prove what the unit rate was, because they were flipping back to when we talked about unit rate and using that, so.
Well, yeah, but hey, that's using resources, right? That's what we always talk about. Kids need to know how to use resources besides, going to Google, and even if they go to Google, what do they do with that information?
Right.
They're using their own written words. So I have a question for you, because this is a premise that I think it will prove out, but we don't have enough time and grade to show it yet. But when I look at this, I think of it like this. I think of it like Bloom or Piaget or anybody else. I think about your concrete piece, your manipulative piece, the handling of real-world objects leads you to, drawing a picture or a graphic, or leads you to symbology, using symbols or numbers or letters, which finally leads to an abstraction in the brain, where the concrete is the foundation of the house that ends with the peak of abstraction. And I feel like when they're doing this discourse method, when they're talking about what they think and feel and believe and explaining themselves and are being questioned and have to contend with those and don't just get defensive and shut down, those verbal skills they develop, to me, I think the reason they can't write is because they can't verbalize. And it's so much easier. I mean, we learn to verbalize before we learn to write. So to me, it still seems like the logical human thing would, if I get them verbalizing, and I keep blocking the swivel, so you're a star sometimes. I get them verbalizing, And then I can ask them to write, and they can write what they would verbalize.
Yes.
And then once they're writing and they're able to write, and then they begin to become able to read the work of others, and now they're a reader. I think we've got it on its head, because we're at the secondary level now. You should already know how to read and write. We're going to give you interventions. It's like, well, but when we use discourse, we see they don't even know how to speak, really.
Right.
I mean, of course they know how to converse out in the world and everything,
Right.
but they don't know how to speak in an academic way.
Exactly.
In a thoughtful way.
Exactly.
And in an intentional way. And once they learn that, then that means, oh, now I can speak that way. My brain can think of those words and I can write them. And now that I can think of those words and write them, of course I can read them and understand them. And then if it's a disconnect in a fundamental reading skill, if it's a dyslexia or whatever, that can be addressed with minimal intervention.
Right.
I really believe that the discourse model is going to push the literacy piece that they're trying to do all these pullouts for. I really think if discourse was in every room,
Right.
on a regular basis,
Great.
that those literacy objectives would meet themselves with
Because the
little,
kids
little,
are
with very
used
little
to
prodding.
reading each other's work and saying, okay, this doesn't make sense, or not knowing if I'm going to choose their work to put up there. So they are rereading it on their own because they don't want it to get up there, and they've skipped some words. The kids do that a
Right.
lot. They know what they're trying to say.
Sure.
They don't know how to put it on paper.
Brain goes faster than their hand.
It does.
And
So
it goes
now,
faster than their mouth, too.
now they're rereading it a lot more. But yeah, I do. I've seen growth in even that. And even the way they write, they're not scrawling it across the page. I don't know where that came from. You're in 7th grade, but you're not using the lines.
Right.
They're even doing better with that.
So self-organizing
Yes.
notes and structures, like I remember we used those Cornell notes. They would say, use Cornell notes. And I had my own way of taking notes. And so, I never did foo-foo the Cornell notes. I think they were powerful, but some kids just didn't use them. And so I kind of, when I take notes, it's like a little flow chart. I use arrows and bubbles and stars and colors. And so, I'd say, well, you can do this or whatever. But whatever the case is, you have a self-organizing system. That's what matters. And it's skewed to you, but someone else should be able to look at it and know it's not gibberish.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like if I can't tell it's not gibberish, and you've forgotten what you were talking about a month from now, you won't be able to tell it's not gibberish
Right.
either. How can it be useful to you if it tells you nothing?
Right.
I copied what the teacher did on the board, therefore I took notes. No.
It's not, and that's what with what they write down. Like sometimes they'll have the tables. I need you to write that table down like that. But then, if yesterday they had the argument about where the labels should go. Also, if the constant of proportionality was 42, one group had it right, but they ended up complying with the rest of the class because everybody else was saying something different. And so
there's a life moment conversation, right?
Like if that's what you gotta stand on it. You have to know what you're talking about because you can't let somebody else convince you. And so the kids' notes were write down something that's going to help you not to make the same mistake. So what did you learn from this discussion? So I'm not telling you what to write down. You're thinking through yourself, self-reflecting on, why did I think I should have done it this way? Why shouldn't I have done it this way? And taking a note about what's going to help me, because that could be different from each person. And so just helping the kids think. They're not used to having to think.
Yeah.
And they fight against that too. Just tell us.
Yeah.
I even got, because I encourage, it's important not to get offended. I encourage the kids to ask questions. I encourage the kids to be open. I encourage them to talk to me about anything respectfully.
Right.
So I had one of the kids ask a question, Miss Bishop, why do you keep asking us questions? You're the teacher. You're supposed to teach us, is one of the questions that came off initially. I said, that's a great question. Why do you all think that? And then somebody else said, because math is about thinking. It's about, so they're answering their own, but they're used to being told what and how to do it.
Yes.
That's what they want. They want to keep doing that. So they fight against it in the beginning, but in the end, they really enjoy it. I'm a thinker. I can think. I can problem solve.
Right. I don't need you to tell me what to think.
Right. Right.
You can tell me what you think, and I'll tell you what I think of it.
Right.
And that's adulthood.
Right.
And then it's, I used to hear it all the time in high school. I'm grown. It's like, well, if you were grown,
Right.
we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
Right.
You're just big.
Right.
It's different than grown. It's okay.
Right.
You know, you're going to be grown your whole life. Slow it down. And let's what does it mean to be grown? Let's do that then. Let's talk about it. It's not just math. It's, you know, and it's important. I think this is the character development piece.
It is.
That our school systems have been missing.
It is. Oh, it is. I am exact. So for me, it's more important that my kids leave prepared to be citizens, not prepared to be test takers.
Right.
And so, and I'm saying this on tape too, I don't focus on the standardized tests. I'm not worried about whether or not they do well. Generally, my kids do well, but that's not the important piece to me. The important piece is that you know that you can do as well as you want to do, that your effort is going to dictate your success. Right. And if your success is basic, I'm excited because maybe you came from below basic and it was a struggle and you got to basic.
Right.
I'm more proud of that than a student who's at proficient and stays
Right.
at proficient.
Right.
You didn't show growth.
Yeah, you should be
Right.
excellent now.
We should be moving up. So I'm more excited for that basic student who really pushed to get that basic, or really pushed to get that C minus. You got a 70%, but I'm celebrating it with
Yeah,
you.
well, that was me in math in high school. I was that kid. It took me until I was an adult to figure out what my pieces were that were missing. I mean, I tell the kids all the time, I say, I only had 2 problems in math. I didn't know what to do first, and I didn't know what to do next. Outside of that, I was good.
Right.
You know, so it's important, and I think it's important for them to see you as human. Like you said, they see you as human, and you make a mistake and you say, oh, or you don't know and you say, I'm going to figure it out. Let's put it in the group, and if you can't do it, I'm gonna find it for you and we'll talk about it. What's wrong with that? You know, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've taught myself, you know, in a pickle at class, and it's like, well, what did I do wrong? And if I can't figure it out and we can't figure it out, I'm going to look it up. And anybody who can figure it out and bring it to me and explain it, if I haven't figured it out, I'm going to give them some bonus. And then now it's like, oh, hey, you want bonus? Well, here's how you get bonus.
Right.
You get bonus for being extra useful. You don't get bonus for doing the thing that everybody's supposed to be doing anyway,
Right.
or doing it faster than anyone else.
Right.
You know, you get bonus for,
Right.
if I'm your boss, I'm not giving you extra pay because you did a good job on a thing I've assigned you to do. But you bring me something that allows me to make a good business decision, and I got a bonus for you.
Right.
And that's how I thought of bonus, and that's how I would use it with the students, and I got a lot of that. I got rid of a lot of that. What can I do for extra credit? There's nothing you can do for extra credit. Extra credit does not exist.
And actually, I've gotten to a system where I retest the kids, but they have to attend tutoring. And after I feel like they're comfortable, if you fail the test, you attend tutoring for however many sessions you need to in order to understand that concept. They retake it, and then I change the grade.
Yeah.
As long as you're showing
That's life.
effort.
That's life.
You're not retaking it just saying, well, can I retake it?
Let me try it again.
No.
I can guess better.
Once you put in the effort, because I feel like your grade should reflect your understanding.
Right.
And if now you understand it, let's change it.
Right. I agree 100%. And that's how life is. I've never been fired from a job without a warning. You know, and I've not been fired from too many. When I was younger. But I was always told what I needed to do to fix my
Right.
errors in thought or performance or what have you. And generally it was behavioral. It was, you know, I was having too much fun, right? I was young and dumb. But that's how life is. And I've never had to take a test on a job outside of like getting a job in a school.
Right.
I had to take a test to show that I could do the math because I'm going to do math. But interview, here's your responsibilities,
Right.
go. That was it, you know, little training, no tests, performance-based, and if you didn't understand something, you went to the boss and said, look, I want to do this, how do I
Right.
do it? And they tell you, you go do it. And it wasn't about just accepting an order, it was about understanding the process that I was supposed to be doing so that I could do it autonomously. And those skills will make you perform well on a test. I'm 100% agree with you. I never trained for a test. And I taught in middle school and I taught in high school, and we did math back in the day a long time ago, and my kids would do great. I didn't even know what was on the math test. I just taught the life science. And we talked about it, and I used to do, but it was me-driven discussions, you know. I thought it was great because they were engaged.
Right.
But it wasn't as great as it could have been. You know, when I
Right.
see this new way, this
Yeah.
model is even richer and even less reliant on the teacher's logic. I think it's powerful. But I agree. I don't think to say I think when you say and when I say, when someone says, I don't care about the test, they care. If all my kids did poorly, I'd care.
Right.
That would tell me something about myself.
Right.
That's not just telling me about the kids.
Right.
But if I care about the test so much that that's the impetus of my lesson,
Right.
what kid cares about that?
Right. And we don't want to I don't want you to think that's what measures your intelligence.
Or your worth.
Or your right. So this is a test that reflects kind of what you know. However, like with the evaluate, we haven't covered hardly any of what's covered on that. So I don't want some of the kids stressed out. Like, I don't know that you're not supposed to.
You don't know it all.
Yeah. So do what you think you're supposed to do and keep moving. But I'm glad we're getting away from testing as much with the kids, because it was overwhelming for them.
And test fatigue. You're not even getting good data anymore because they're just tired of taking a test.
Tired.
So they're not even giving you real data. Now your data is just sloppy and skewed, and it doesn't have any real relevance to actionability. And if your data is not actionable, then what good is it really? It's just an exercise to show I'm collecting data, I'm accountable. If it's not actionable, what good is it?
Right.
And your data is not going to be actionable if it's representing test fatigue, if it's representing a bad day at home, if it's representing my mom's mad at me, if it's representing my girlfriend broke up with me. I got one day to get it right, and if I'm not on that day, I guess I'm a failure for life. I mean, those kinds of scenarios are what goes into a young mind. It's like when they see you in the hallway. They don't think about the nuance of emotion that you might be going through.
Right.
They see your face and they say, mad, glad, sad. That's the three things they see. If you come in and you're not smiling, you're mad. Or if you look sad, that might be the case. But you're not glad. That's all they know. And I think that's important, that mad, glad, sad mentality. It's like, we have to remember that that's how they're perceiving the world. You know, they're perceiving it very simply. Not because they're simple-minded, but because simplicity has been sufficient for them. And we've made it sufficient with mega scaffolding and all kinds of things that were meant to guide them along the path we wanted to do, but because we were always the one pulling them, they never really walked the path. If I drag you by a leash the whole way, then I release the leash, you don't even, half the time you were thinking about being drugged and not what direction you were going and why. You got to journey with me, you know. So, well, we'll probably cut the back of this off because it became a discussion, but this is wonderful. So thank you so much. I'm gonna shut it down and give you back your time. This is stellar. Thank you so much. It's going to be so useful, great tool, and I'm really happy you worked with me on this. And again, I do want to come back and catch that other group. Let them see the dynamic that group had to offer as well. So thank you again, and I guess that's it.
All right.